Hello, and welcome to this overview of fake engagements in historical romance novels. I'm Olivia, your new favorite resource for book recommendations you can easily screenshot, and you're watching Random Olive Reads. So, first up, what is a fake engagement? Well, for various reasons, two people might enter a fake engagement in historical romances, either to make someone else jealous, or to appease a family member, or maybe secure some sort of inheritance. Now, usually both parties are transparent with each other about their motives. It's very similar to a marriage of convenience without the actual marriage part. Well, at least it's not intended to have the actual marriage part. However, there would likely be some sort of scandal when the engagement is broken off, usually leaving the woman of the relationship ruined. So I've got 18 books here to talk about. They are listed in alphabetical order by author last name. So we will start with Mary Balogh. First up is A Counterfeit Betrothal, which is book 2 of the Wait series. So this one kind of starts off with a group of young marriage-age people picnicking, and one of them decides she wants to see her estranged parents get together, or at least be in the same room at once. So she plots a betrothal with her friend who is slightly rakish, slightly unsuitable, so that her parents will be forced to spend time together. Either they have to talk to each other to break up the engagement, or they have to stay for the supposed wedding planning. Now, most of this book actually has to do with the parents' relationship, and only very little of it has to do with the fake betrothed couple. We get to see an older couple who have been apart for over a decade, only corresponding through letters and shared custody of their daughter. We do find out the cause of the estrangement and whether or not they can overcome it. This story is actually intensely emotional with both of these very stubborn, also guilty, also lonely people finally coming together. Plus, we have bits of lighthearted fun with the younger couple and some schemes between these two as well. Definitely an interesting setup using the fake engagement to further a different romance plot that you would not have expected just from reading the summary alone. Next from Mary Balogh is A Summer to Remember, which is book 2 of the Bedouins prequel series. So we have Lauren, who is recovering from her abandonment at the altar from the previous book in the series and is in London for the social season. Kit is looking for the perfect wife so that he can snub his father's chosen bride. Now, Kit has heard the rumors of how serious and unflappable Lauren is and then wagers his friends that he can get her to marry him. Now, Lauren doesn't fall for his flattery, but learns that he wants to defy his father. Lauren proposes a deal where she will pretend to be his fiance in exchange for a summer of adventure and passion, since she has led such a sheltered, prim, and proper life thus far. And so this is a book where we're introduced to the Bedouin family, the rest of the Bedouin series. Apparently, Kit's childhood home bordered the Bedouin home, and he and his brothers were friends with the Bedouin siblings growing up. So one summer, he believed himself to be in love with the fiery Freya Bedouin, but was heartbroken to find that she becomes betrothed to his older brother, the heir to the earldom. Now, his older brother had died recently, and now his father is trying to set Kit back up with Freya, but Kit's not interested. Lauren, of course, thinks that the adventurous Freya is a better match for Kit, but, that's not how this is going to go. This is Kit and Lauren's story. In addition to all of that, Kit feels terribly guilty that his younger brother was badly injured in the war, etc. And Lauren's soft spoken nature is essential to help these brothers mend their rift and sort of bring peace back into the household. While Lauren is not exactly the type of lady that Kit's family expected him to end up with, he, of course, thinks that she's a keeper. Later on in the Bedouin series, we have Slightly Scandalous, which is Freya's story. So Freya is traveling to visit a friend in Bath while at an inn along the journey. Joshua bursts into her room to hide. She forces him to retreat out the window and thinks, hey, that's that. But Joshua is also in Bath to visit his grandmother. So both of our protagonists are headstrong and fierce and end up stirring up drama in this sleepy town with their loud quarrels. When Joshua's aunt comes to town to set up a betrothal with her daughter, he proposes a fake engagement to Freya. Now, she's willing to go along with the excitement and plans to be free of the betrothal in pretty short order. Freya wants nothing to do with any real romantic entanglements, especially after Kit had spurned her the year before in the events of A Summer to Remember. Chaos ensues when the rest of Freya's family gets involved. Her eldest brother, who's a duke, comes to collect Freya and Joshua back home so that they can attend a christening nearby. There never seems to be like a good time to shake off the engagement, and Freya and Joshua just keep getting more and more entangled with each other. We also learn about the horrible rumors surrounding Joshua's inheritance, the death of his cousin, why he's supporting an unmarried woman with a child, and then his sweet younger cousin. And of course, with the BALOGH universe kind of tying into each other, we do get to see his cousins again later on in the Simply series. Next, we have My Mistletoe Beau by Anna Bennett. This is a standalone holiday novella. So in this one, a young lady breaks into an earl's apartments to steal back her father's pocket watch. The earl has a grudge against her father since his own father's intended had eloped with the other guy and left the jilted man heartbroken. However, he's been telling his grandmother that he's courting a girl and will give back the watch in exchange for a fake fiance. Of course, as these two grow closer, they have to work out their differences and their antagonistic start. Any Rogue Will Do by Bethany Bennett is book 1 of the Misfits of Mayfair series. 7 years ago, it seemed like Ethan and Charlotte were courting, but then one day Ethan publicly disparages her and basically ruins her reputation. We do find out why he does that later in the book. Now they cross paths again, and she is trying to avoid an unwanted suitor, so she recruits him as a fake fiance. Obviously, they're still attracted to each other, but they need to work out all those reasons why he so very immaturely ruined her all those years ago. Someday My Duke Will Come by Christina Britton is book 2 of the Isle of Sin series. Our characters here had met in the previous book in the series, but you don't really need to read that one to enjoy this one. Clara is basically a spinster and like a caregiver to everyone in her family due to some mysterious event in her past. Now, if you're a historical romance reader, you'll probably be able to guess what her big secret is while you're reading this book. Um, and Quincy is a recent duke, and for some reason is being pushed to honor a betrothal between his late brother and another woman, and he basically wants to avoid it. So the reason for the fake engagement here is to get out of another engagement. And since these two start off as friends and they start talking, we kind of see how their relationship develops. 4 Weeks of Scandal by Megan Frampton is book 5 of the Hazards of Dukes series. This one has a property dispute and a fake engagement to justify living in the same house together. Octavia and Gabriel fight over who actually owns her late father's house. Both Octavia and Gabriel have gambling fathers who tend to lose to each other quite regularly. While they try to figure out who has the actual rights to the house by searching through documents or any like property paperwork, they enter into a fake engagement so that the town doesn't like find it suspicious or scandalous. And in the meantime, they're starting to restore the house. She wants to sell the property and he wants to just move in and live there. I really enjoyed the bookish and steady hero who really just wants a place to call home. The Winter Bride by Anne Gracie is book 2 of the Chance Sisters series. So the couple from book 1 of the series is off on honeymoon. So the guy from there has asked his friend Freddie to watch over his aunt and the bride's sisters. So then Freddie starts befriending Damaris and is walking her to and from work. She's trying to avoid the kind of elder woman aunt's meddlesome insistence that she participate in a London season because of something that happened in her past. At some point, Freddie is being called to his parents' house for a house party that he knows is just going to be a matchmaking attempt. So he convinces Damaris to be his fake fiance and brings her home to meet his parents, right? So this is a matchmaking avoidance type of fake engagement. There's basically a lot of bad blood between Freddie and his parents, and we get to slowly see Damaris like uncover the hidden depths of her fake fiance and then figuring out what her traumas and hangups are so that these two can finally be together. Never Fall for Your Fiancé by Virginia Heath is book one of the Merriwell Sisters series. A charming Earl, whose mother lives in America, has thwarted her matchmaking by telling her that he's engaged, except he made it up. And now mom's coming to visit and to plan his wedding. He meets Minerva, and it looks like she could use some cash, so he hires her to be his fake fiancé. She brings her two younger sisters. Plus, his friend hired an actress to be their mother. It's basically a huge mess, but absolutely hilarious with all of the potential for calamity. Always Be My Duchess by Amelie Howard is book one of the Taming of the Dukes series. This one has a high stakes meet cute when these two people are running from footpads. Lysander and Nev have an instant connection. He then hires her to pretend to be his escort for the evening, which then turns into the rest of the season. He's cold, doesn't show emotion well, he prioritizes business over relationships, and Nev is just trying to survive and care for her injured sister without sacrificing her integrity. This one has been stated to be like a retelling of the movie Pretty Woman. The level of angst and longing and realizations of love in this book are really, really good. Only Rakes Would Dare by Charlie Lane is book five of the Debutante Dares series. Childhood friends meet again and strike a deal for a fake engagement. So, this one is a family pressure sort of fake engagement. Griffin is avoiding passion and emotions at all costs to prevent himself from turning into his rakish father and late brother. Edith is sort of licking her wounds after she disastrously tried and failed to compromise another lord. She is much too emotional and spirited to suit Griffin, but he kind of feels his ice walls melting around her. And since he's the only male in her life to treat her with any kindness and respect, she's at too much risk of falling in unrequited love again. Being pushed to marry others by their fathers, they strike a bargain for a fake engagement until they realize, obviously, they cannot ignore their own feelings for each other. Super sweet book, and I loved how Griffin comes to Edith's defense every step of the way. Daring Miss Danvers by Vivian Lorette is book one of the Wallflower Weddings series. This one is an inheritance related fake engagement slash family pressure. Quincy somehow needs to convince his grandmother that he's seriously engaged before his inheritance is released to him. So he picks his best friend's sister to fake propose to. She goes along with it, maybe because she had a crush on him all along, but also she doesn't want anyone to know that she's secretly a painter, which is somehow unladylike. I'm not quite sure. But every time they kind of try to call it off, it doesn't quite work. And then somehow they end up married before they talk it all out. Another one from Vivian Lorette in a different series is The Rogue to Ruin, which is book three of the Misadventures in Matchmaking series. The fake engagement in this story is to warn off some villainous, possibly dangerous suitor. So, although Ainsley and Reid are basically enemies with opposing businesses on the same street, she declares him to be her fiance when faced with that villainous suitor from her past. While these two have never gotten along before and always bickered with each other, Reid becomes intensely protective of Ainsley and watches over her safety. And I think somehow they must make their business stuff work out too. Changing continents, we have Hitched to the Gunslinger by Michelle McLean, which is book one of the Gunslinger series. So it takes place kind of in the Old West in America. We have Outlaw Gray, who's just trying to retire, and he ends up in a sleepy town where no one knows him called Desolation. Somehow, he gets himself embroiled into trouble when a woman wants to shoo off some other men from her land and declares Gray to be her fiance. He agrees to the farce in exchange for a place to sleep and daily hot meals. Too bad for him, the lady cannot actually cook. Oops. Well, anyway, Gray ends up involved in the small town dynamics and even becomes the sheriff at some point. This one's a low angst, really funny story. Jumping back over to historical England, The Mistletoe Temptation by Eve Pendle is book two of the Faking Stitch series. So, the second book of the series catches up with one of these like embroidery clients that don't actually know how to embroider. So, they hire a woman to like fake the embroidery. So, this lady, Gina, is avoiding marriage until she can gain her inheritance at age 21 to travel the world. At a ball over the summer, her brother's best friend, Emmett, catches on to her ruse of poorly dressing and dancing and proposes a fake engagement. They agree that the engagement will last until her 21st birthday, which is Christmas, except that Emmett secretly wants to keep Gina forever since she's unlike all the other ladies on the marriage mart. As they spend more time together over the next 6 months, they form a friendship, grow closer, but still need to discuss and resolve their disparate goals. This one was a pretty quick read, being a novella, but it was really enjoyable. My Darling Duke by Stacey Reid is book one of the Sinful Wallflower series. Our poor wallflower kitty is desperate and financially cash strapped, so she starts a rumor that she's engaged to a reclusive duke, hoping that it will help her younger sisters land good marriage matches. She just figures she'll break the engagement later after her sisters are married and kind of go about her wallflower spinster ways. Except things don't go exactly as planned. All of a sudden, she's being credit, and all of the Duke's staff are treating her like she's really his fiance. And then when he hears about it in the newspaper, he finally shows up in London just to see what this audacious girl is all about. So there's a reason why the Duke is a recluse in the first place. He was terribly injured in a house fire, leaving him scarred with impaired mobility. There's a lot of underlying insecurity there, and these two have a lot to work through, but it's interesting to see how it all comes together. Another novella here is An Affair by the Sea by Erica Ridley. It is book two of the Sirens Retreat series. Now, how many tropes can you fit into a novella? We have an invented fiance, mistaken identity, fake engagement, a poor relation spinster, and opposites attract. So we have Allegra, who has made up a fake pirate fiance to appease her younger cousins and make excuses for her lack of suitors. But really, she's just waiting for her inheritance to come when she turns 30. On a trip to the seaside Siren's Retreat, Allegra literally runs into a man who fits the physical description of her pirate, except that he's a bit of a bumbling solicitor with dreams of becoming a chef. So then these two agree to keep up the charade while they're both at Siren's Retreat, but they end up falling in love for real. And lastly, we have A Daring Arrangement by JOANNA SHUPE, which is book one of the 400 series taking place in Gilded Age, New York. We start here with a young lady who's from England, but was sent to visit her aunt in New York so that she can stay away from an unsuitable suitor. She thinks that if she can ruin her reputation enough in New York, her father will bring her back to England and let her marry the guy that she wants. So she basically proposes a fake engagement to the most scandalous man in New York. But what's in it for him? She'll be able to give him entrance into New York high society. And then all of a sudden, he's on his like best behavior and not being a scandal at all because he wants to impress these like businessmen in New York. And of course, as these two team up, he's trying to seduce her and make her forget all about that other guy. So hopefully you found a book here that interests you that you're going to pick up and read. Thank you so much for watching this video. Links to all of these books are in the description box below. Like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos, and you can follow me on Instagram at randomolive.